Today marks World Obesity Day. This day was established in 2015 as an annual campaign with the goal of stimulating and supporting practical actions that will help people achieve and maintain a healthy weight and reverse the global obesity crisis. Diseases caused by obesity are costing South Africa's fragile healthcare system 33 billion rand every year. Researchers at Wits University say diabetes and arthritis are mostly caused by obesity. Half of the adult population is obese, and diabetes and hypertension related illnesses are among the top 10 causes of death. We are now joined via Zoom by Dr Sindeep Bhana. He is the head of endocrinology and metabolism at Chris Hani Baragwanath Academic Hospital. A very good afternoon to you, Doc. Thanks so very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me over.
You're most welcome. Doctor, let's start by talking about, what exactly is obese? What is the definition of obese? Because, you would see someone who you don't necessarily see as being overweight, but medically, and in medical terms, that person is in fact obese.
Yeah, and so I think we must move away from shying to use this term. It is a medical term. And I would say it's important to understand the word being overweight and obese. So we use certain measures. BMI, it's an internationally well-known measure of weight. And once your BMI is above 25, but less than 30, you're overweight. And once it's above 30, then you're medically considered obese. So it is a medical term. And it's important to understand that like you use a tool to measure blood pressure, and like you use a tool to measure your diabetes, this is one of a few important tools that you can be using to measure weight and obesity.
Yeah, of course, obesity is then linked to some of the chronic diseases that I understand many South Africans suffer from. Let's elaborate on this and how big the problem is and what you've identified as being, some of the problem areas. Obviously, there's issues about, the certain foods that we are eating, and perhaps some of the foods that we see as traditional foods are actually problematic. Let's talk about, what's causing this issue with chronic diseases. Yeah.
Well, first you asked about the extent of the problem. So in South Africa, if you look at our male population, about 31% of males are either overweight or obese. And our female population, my data is showing that it's close on to 3/4. So around 75% of females are either overweight or obese. Now, this used to be 70%, so it is growing. And whichever way you cut it, it's a big problem. And there's many reasons we could point to this. I mean, the one being a lot of us are becoming more sedentary. A lot of our work is based on sitting, and so most of us only get to about 3,500 to 5,000 steps a day. And so being less active as a society contributes towards this problem. But one must understand that, of course, there's foods, and we use food as a source of energy, gives us calories, and it's very expensive to find healthy food. So as a society, if one goes and looks at any of the shopping centers, you walk into one of the big malls, you would find that carbohydrates are a lot cheaper than the healthy fats and the healthy proteins. And so one could say a lot of other countries subsidize healthy foods, whereas in this country, our farmers are not supported in terms of whether it's milk, whether it's meat, whether it's lentils, whether it's grains. And so from that perspective, that is an issue. Healthy food's expensive. And number three, I mean, as a society, are we encouraging healthy behavior? I mean, a few years ago, government wanted to stop PE at schools. And I think that's wrong. Unfortunately, they saw the light and reintroduced it. So we need to encourage our youngsters to be a lot more active, a lot more healthier. our youngsters are spending at least 2 to 4 hours either in front of a television or a device like the one I'm using now, whether it's a phone, iPad, or computer. And remember, this means less activity out on the playground. And so that affects it as well. So there's many factors. These I've just named a few.
Yeah. So how do we address it, especially when it comes to the adult population? I mean, I'm grateful that you spoke about children because at least they still have that activity at school. But when it comes to adults, it's not like we have PE here at work. So where do we begin? Because not all people can afford either to get a dietitian or consult with someone like you, or afford the private gym fees. How do we get South Africans eating right, but also going to the gym? I must say I do go to the gym. So how do we get that addressed?
Yeah, so I think the burden doesn't sit on one person's shoulder. I think we all, as a society, you guys in the press, the radios, the written media, schools, governments, churches, society, we're all going to have to work to sort this problem out. I mean, if we got to a point where a large percentage of our population is overweight, this didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So, where do we start? Yeah, you don't all need to have an exercise physiologist or a gym trainer. You don't all have to consult a dietitian. So, that's why I say this needs to start at school level.
Yeah.
We all need to understand that besides calorie counting, which is cumbersome, we need to be able to just eyeball our plate of food and work out what is healthy and what is not. And so we, as a society, consume way too much carbohydrates. And you get high GI carbohydrates and low GI carbohydrates. And one could Google this, but the high GI carbohydrates are sugars, energy drinks, breads, especially the white breads, the white rices, the pastas, the pizzas, the potatoes, some of the fruit, high GI. So all of this does contribute towards the sugar levels being a bit too high. It pushes up a hormone called insulin, and then the insulin resistance is one of many hormones that can contribute towards weight issues.
Yeah.
And so being active, you don't have to go to the gym. Exercise is a strong word. Some people move away from the term when you say, oh, please, I think you need to be exercising. We just need to become active. And so we need to make more time available for ourselves to be active. And it takes 20 to 40 minutes of a walk to get close to that 8 to 10,000 steps that is required.
All right.
And so something as simple as walking, it doesn't have to be sophisticated.
Yeah.
But I say start, make it interesting, make the journey interesting, and then certainly if you've tried and you're having difficulty losing weight, consult your doctors, whether it's a state hospital, whether it's your GP, whether you're in the private sector, because the burden doesn't lie on endocrinologists. There's just few of us, and there's millions of South Africans. So there are drugs available that can help people that have already been on a program where they're watching carbohydrates, they're watching their calories, they're exercising, and they're not winning. One needs to consult doctors, and there are medical treatments available to manage weight.
Thanks so much for chatting to us. I think I might at some point consult with you. Thank you very much for giving us your time. We certainly do appreciate it here on SABC News, sir.